Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is VIN 2794. This is a 2019 anniversary edition, paint code 1K7, which is matte nebula gray pearl, with LA80 interior, which is the white, blue, and black interior, specific only to the anniversary edition 2019. In the US, 101 of them exist. In the US, 49. This car popped up at Carvana in Massachusetts for $51,000, and it looks like it has about 68,000 miles. Looking at the Carfax, it looks like it's been a California, Idaho car, and then now it's in Massachusetts very recently. Production statistics, 101 of these cars exist for the US 49. So 101 out of the 2,348 cars produced for the US 49, which is about 4% of these cars that are these anniversary cars. In VIN production order, this car is the 51st out of the 101 that have been identified for the US 49, if it makes any difference. These cars are not individually numbered, unlike some other models, you know, the LC 500s and the IS 500s and the RCFs, all the final editions and special editions. Doesn't exist on this car. So Carfax, Epic VIN, and AutoCheck. Carfax shows this as a 4-owner, 1-accident car very recently too, in November of 2024. It shows the front or undercarriage as damaged, and it says it hit a curb. And so it looks like probably the front bumper was replaced and maybe some of the suspension and or wheel, but you know, the undercarriage damage, may just inspect that very closely, get it on a lift and look at it. Epic VIN shows this as a 4-owner, 1-accident car. Same accident, November 22nd, 2024. Front end, front left, front right is what it shows as to the damage. And usually AutoCheck catches these and AutoCheck doesn't show it. AutoCheck shows it as a 2-owner, no accident car, which I don't think is correct. I think it's a 3-owner car. And I say that because it looks like in the third owner either moved it to Massachusetts from Idaho or something like that, but basically it was for sale in Texas. It was moved to Idaho, somebody bought it and had it to Idaho, and then like a month later, it was registered in Massachusetts. So I think I've seen this in other cases where people just move and it shows it as another owner. So I think this is a 3-owner car, not a 4-owner car, which is what everything else says. But we'll call it a 3 or 4-owner car for the purposes of this. Previous sales, August of 2018, $93,000 in California. And then it was for sale at Sewell Lexus, April of 2024, $60,000 with 55,000 miles. And as I said, it looks like whoever bought it took it to Idaho, and then a month later it went to Massachusetts. And now it is for sale here in October of 2025 in Massachusetts at CarMax, $51,000 with 67,000 miles. So onto the pictures. Looking really closely at that front bumper, now that I know that it has an accident, you can see that the front bumper doesn't quite match. The paint matches just off a little bit, where I normally probably wouldn't even look that far into it, except now that I know there's an accident, I start looking a lot closer. And so it looks like that's the case here. Definitely looks like the bumper was repainted and or replaced, but definitely repainted. And matte nebula gray pearl is pretty difficult to match, and it's pretty apparent when there's been paint work done. But everything else, the hood alignment, the headlights, the bumper alignment, everything else looks great. And so if it was repaired, it looks like a quality repair in that regard. The interior looks really good. Could probably use a pretty good cleaning of the leather, but overall, I don't see any issues. The carbon fiber is not known to delaminate on these anniversary edition cars like it is on some of the others with just the standard carbon fiber trim. So I don't see any issues there. So onto the price. This car now shows reserved, and it wasn't even 6 hours when it was listed that it was reserved. And obviously the price is a driving factor here, because an anniversary clean title car, even with the 1 accident, you adjust down 5 or 6%, but the other anniversary cars are typically trading in the mid 60s. And there's actually one that has almost identical mileage that's for sale right now here in October of 2025. I've already done the video on it, and it is for sale for $69,000, which I think is priced high. But if you compare it to this car, you're getting almost $20,000 discount compared to that car, and it's essentially the same car. So that said, the price is very low. However, this is like the second highest mileage anniversary edition that exists right now that's currently for sale or that has been for sale recently. So It's sort of uncharted waters as far as where the price needs to be, but I think $51,000 was way too low for this car, and that's probably why it got snatched up very quickly. I think this would probably be like upper 50s, lower 60s, based on where others have sold. So onto the service history. This car is extremely well dealer serviced up until about 2022, which is about 3.5 years ago, and 50,000 miles. So the last 3.5 years and 20,000 miles, there's kind of a question mark as to the service. So moving on to the service history, for the first couple of years, it was just oil changes. No issues, nothing, no complaints, anything like that. The first entry of note is August of 2021, 49,000 miles with 2 rear tires and front brakes. And March of 2022 at 50,500 miles, the check engine light was on P0121, which is a throttle body circuit. So the answer there is you replace the throttle body. Those are about $500 to replace if it's outside of warranty. This car was probably still under warranty at that time, but they replaced the throttle body, seemed like it resolved the issue. At that same service, they also replaced the battery, and they found a bolt in the cup holder, and it says they found it was for the airbox in the engine bay. So somebody just maybe forgot to put it back, but no big deal there. And it looks like there's some other service entries on AutoCheck and Carfax in April of 2025 for tires and oil change, something like that. And then something in July of 2024, it looks like maybe just another oil change. So last few years, service is kind of questionable. So you're basically just gonna have to spend a little money to bring it up to date to, if you're gonna drive this daily, things like that. So what is not done? What have I not seen? The 2017s to 2020s, very commonly you see the adaptive damping shocks leaking. No evidence of any of those being replaced here. They're not super expensive, but it is something of note because they do leak sometimes when they were brand new, sometimes when they have 15, 20,000 miles. This one may have gone all 70,000 miles and not leaked, or maybe they're leaking and just nothing has been done. So that is something to look at. The car's still a little bit too new for Valley Plate, so if you're gonna do a pre-purchase inspection, inspect it anyway. It takes 30 seconds. Lower control arm bushings with all of these cars. Any of the GS, not just the GSF. Lower control arm bushings, check the insides of the front tires for tire wear. If you see any excessive wear, you're gonna be on the hook for an alignment, lower control arm bushings, and 2 tires. So I said at 50,000 miles, it had front brakes done, no evidence of the rear brakes being done, unless it's been done at an independent mechanic or something like that, but I don't see anything on the Carfax, I don't see anything on the service history about it being done. So look at the rear brakes closely. Usually front brakes, you're gonna get 20 to 30,000 miles out of them. The rear brakes, you're gonna get 50 to 60, basically almost double the amount of time on the rear brakes. I don't see it being done on here, so make sure you inspect those closely. So, speaking of that then, the pads were done, front brakes were done 20,000 miles ago, so you probably look at the fronts as well, just because of the mileage, 20,000 miles. So what else have I not seen done? 60,000 mile service, that's spark plugs, belt, transmission service, TVD service, the torque vectoring differential. None of that appears to have been done, again, unless it's been done at an independent mechanic or something that doesn't report to Carfax, but definitely make sure that's done. If it's not, I highly recommend getting that done. Save yourself, you have peace of mind moving forward with this car. So, and finally, would I buy this car? Absolutely, at this price. And you adjust accordingly for the accident, 5 or 6%, it's still priced very, very low, especially for the mileage and being an anniversary edition. So I think you can't go wrong with this. I would inspect the damage repairs very closely. Obviously do a pre-purchase inspection, make sure everything's good there. You got a little catching up to do on maintenance and some other things that you may have later down the line, but I think overall it looks like a really good option. The anniversary cars don't come up for sale that often, and I say that as the other one is currently for sale, but obviously priced too high. So definitely a good buy, and it looks like somebody has reserved it and it will be going to a new home. So anyway, that's what I've got for you guys. 2794. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you soon.